Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deep Blue Renegade podcast. My name is Molly, also known as the Deep Blue Renegade. I'd like to welcome you guys to episode I don't even remember. Can't even tell. 420 something. It is Saturday, August 20th, 2022. And I'm glad you could join me today. It is mega foggy now. There was a not foggy part of the day, but I don't think it's going to affect the episode this week. And of course, we're in a slightly chaotic place on this project, but whatever. Such is life. So, let's see. What has happened? I am supposed to be doing increases. Yeah, no, this is definitely a very chaotic place to be in this project, but whatever. So, this is my brioche shawl that I am knitting with my Hip Strings Base 12 Spin Along, Advent, and a 50/50 llama silk. Would it be? And I am making up a brioche design as I go. Apparently what I've been calling drops are called drops. So that was sort of gratifying. Which, effectively speaking, I am probably making more work for myself because I have these little stitch motifs where I increase, or I go from 1 stitch into 3, and then transition to going 3 stitches to 1 a little bit later. And so that ends up sort of creating these bubbles or beads or drops in the knitting, which is fun. But I apparently stopped in the middle of the row. I think when I went on my walk today, I don't even think I even took out my knitting, but it's definitely growing. We are now in a purple and green section of the yarn, which you cannot tell based on how I'm holding this. So it's a very light green that is in here. So that which looks sort of whitish is actually sort of a pale, almost yellow leaning green, so sort of chartreusey. And I'm, roughly speaking, I have triangle shaping in the center, but it's a little bit faster than triangle on the outside, so it should make a nice cressety sort of shape. And then the llama silk yarn, the llama is black and the silk is dyed, and so it's very subtly colored. Like, you can definitely tell that there is like green and silver and blue in the colorway, but it's sometimes harder to see there. So I think I'm working my last bead or drop or whatever before I launch into the next pattern section. So I'm going to switch what I'm doing, because I ended up getting some very fun stitch dictionaries, which is definitely exciting and festive for sure. So I think what I'm going to transition to next is something that Nancy Marchand said is ushi sushi. um, so that'll be fun and festive because it's been a good week for books. And it's quite possible that I'll return home with a book tomorrow, so options. So that is the story there. So my hip strings is a variety of silk blends that, what would it be? It ended up coming with like 12 packets of fiber. And what I ended up doing was I split them in half and I spun one half in the prescribed order of the kit, and I spun the other half by rolling a die. So this means, and I think there's only one maybe teeny section in which a color plied on top of itself, and not a big deal in my eyes. It probably gives it the appearance that it's a little bit bigger of a color run than it actually is, but whatever. And so far as I've been working it, I've had all of these cool tones. So at some point it will get more warm tones in it, but not quite yet. But it's been the case where this is sort of like my second pattern section on the shawl, so it's the case where I had sort of more spaced out droplets, and then I made them closer together, which maybe is a little bit, yeah, you can see they're a little bit closer together, and then I will transition to something that looks maybe a little bit more leafy, which should be fun and exciting. There were so many different charts to choose from in the book, so lots of inspiration. And I'm not even, it was the case where I was like flipping through and being like, which one would I really want? And then there was one that was like, ooh. And then I got to the end of the book and then I tried flipping through again. It's like, I don't remember when I went, ooh. Whoopsies. So, it's not the end of the world. I'm pretty happy with my choice. Should I swatch? I guess I'm just gonna live life dangerous and not swatch. Alright, this is one of the beads in which I am not doing that increase on. Okay. I just have to spend that extra moment to make sure I'm establishing the pattern correctly over the edge of whatever the point of the triangle. And then it should be fine. So that's the story there. This has gotten quite a bit of love. I have not, I haven't actually moved my marker recently, so maybe I should, because I have like a marker way up here. But I don't think I moved my marker last week, so it would probably make sense to do that. So that is the story there. It's definitely getting more love right now, just because I have not yet made the bead order. But like definitely definitely hollowing out this ball of yarn, but I still have quite a bit to go, and then this one still seems really bad. So what's gonna, I haven't really decided yet what way I'm gonna end up going. Because I could go one of two ways, so it could be the case where when I run out of this one, I could transition to one color brioche because there's a 400 yard difference in the skeins. Though, because I am using this one as like the I cord, I'm probably using it a smidgen faster, but just a smidgen. But we shall see. It still seems like there's quite a lot to go. And then maybe you can see, I don't know. It's probably very challenging in order to capture the color changes on this without it totally blowing out. Yeah, it's very subtle. It's blowing out quite a bit. This one seems fairly true. The outside of this is purple and blue. So I should be, the next color sort of in the progression will be pink, which you can see in the end there, and it looks like a pretty long run of pink too. So I think this is a section where two bats have been applied on top of each other. So should be fun. It looks like I have a pretty long run before things start getting more neutral again, which is fine. So that is the story there. But it has, I think it's gotten the most love this week. But I did have a pretty good run on this shawl, which of course is also not in a good place. So this is Scheherazade. It is a bead and lace pattern by Anna Victoria, and I think I'm on the 12th repeat of the body chart at this point, or I'm into, it's either 11 or 12. So I'm actually doing the pearl back row before I end up like reestablishing the pattern with the next half repeat of it, I think. Yeah. Like I'm not knitting over beads right now, so it is in that transition space. But this I ended up getting another bead row in this week, which was good. It turned out that the 60-some beads it needed didn't end up making like a huge dent in my tube of beads, so it wasn't the case where I was going through beads at a completely alarming rate. I probably used like 1/6 of a tube or something along those lines, but you can see a very gorgeous gradient that's going on here. Let's see, can we get some of that tonally goodness in there too? No, I can't even tell. You can definitely see the beads, I'm assuming. So there's not too much, or would it be? The pattern is pretty easy. The bead rows are fairly annoying. I will do the other half of the chart before I weigh again to verify that I still want to do 14 repeats of the chart. At this point, I think it's holding pretty steady there, so that's good. What's maybe less clear is whether or not I'm estimating correctly on yarn remaining and all that stuff, but it is very pretty. So I am knitting this with Yarn Place Gentle, which is a merino and cashmere cobweb 3-ply. I ended up doing a Russian join because when I was winding and rewinding the yarn, I ended up snapping a section, and it seems like that worked out reasonably well. I think it would be challenging to find where I'd made the fix, so that's good. I know there are a couple more places where that happened on the skein, so I just sort of tied a knot and went on with my day, but making something a little bit nicer than that was good. So, I don't know. At some point I will need to finish my calculations and decide how many beads I really need. Now, what's funny about all of this is that there is, like, no possible way either of these will be done at the end of the month, so it is sort of a case of spending time which will not amount to imaginary points, but oh well, such is life. But what ended up giving this project a little bit of new life was the Fun Onions decided to do a waves and beads cal, and so it's a shawl where not necessarily an all over bead pattern, but in every row or in every right side row has beads pattern. So there's like 2 or 3 places where you're placing beads, but you sort of have a continual line of them instead of having them be distributed like this. And in the true spirit of the Fun Onions, they're like, well, if you're working on a shawl with beads, you should join us too. So that is why I ended up picking this up, at least for a little bit. I think I did a little bit on Sunday and a little bit on Monday, and then have not picked it up since. But that's okay. It's not been my primary project for sure. It is gonna end up being a pretty big shawl in the end. Part of this is that I do want to use all of the yarn, or as much of the yarn as possible, since I dyed it as a gradient. But it already, I don't know, it's probably not big enough yet, but it's certainly, or maybe I'm just getting foxed because there are so many beads in this shawl that it just feels very substantial, even though it is not very substantial. But yeah, no, this is probably my brioche project's gonna be like 1,600 yards of lace weight. This one is 1,400 yards of cobweb. Is having 2 shawls on the needle simultaneously foolishness? Who knows? But that's where we're at right now. It is really gorgeous. So, will it be fun to work on other things? Probably. But, oh well. just keep slowly but surely chipping away at it, and it'll be fine. It's gonna be so lovely when it's done. But I'm certainly ready for more excitement in the project too, so there's that. So what I have to laugh about from last week was I had my plastic grocery bag of fiber. I was like, oh, I only have 2 more pieces left to spin, and then I can switch gears. I had like 5 or 6. But I did finish spinning the first ply of my current sweater spin. So this is a combination of Finn, Merino, BFL, mohair, and some Merino silk. The Merino was dyed by Hello Yarn. The Finn was dyed by me under the instruction of Hello Yarn. And the BFL was a mixed BFL in sort of like a white and brown. And so this is what the first bottom looks like. And what I ended up doing was I combined it on my drum carder, dizzed it off. I ended up having 16 bats. I then ended up splitting them into fifths, throwing them all into a bag so that I could make a 5-ply yarn. And this is what the outside of this bobbin looks like. Unfortunately, this foggy light is a little bit dangerous. It seems to want to blow things out, but how close can we bring it and have it work? It's a little bit. So there are blues and greens and yellows and teals and browns. That's sort of what it would be. And the fiber that I put into it, like, roughly speaking, it is 2/5 blue, 1/5 the brown and white, and then the remainder is sort of a mixture of blue, yellow, green, and teal and brown. So, based on how I split it, there will be some pretty long runs where it may be one particular color, but that's why I mixed them all up in the bag, so it should be pretty barber pole-y. And then the overall impression, I think will end up being fairly blue. Like, it seems like it's fairly blue from here. But all sorts of shades and colors and that sort of thing. So, should be fun. But that took so much longer to spin than I thought, because I thought I was almost done, and it was not the case. So in my quest to succeed at Stash Dash, I have started working on my sample, and obviously enough, we have the wheel very gently interfering with my computer. But so this here is there's tussa, flax, and wool in this blend. And this is how much I have left of my 1/2 ounce sample. And this is what it's sort of looking like on the bobbin. So it's several shades of brown. And so the goal here, I'm not entirely sure. Or would it be? I'm thinking all of these fibers are relatively similar to each other. Only one of them, I think, is sort of like explicitly variegated. So I'm wondering if what I want to do is actually chain ply them for efficiency. So I spun 12 different fibers in little 1/2 ounce samples like this. But the dealio is going to be, so then that ends up being, so 12 fibers, half ounce sample, so like a total of like 3 ounces. Does that make sense? And I'm thinking right now that the appropriate action is actually to chain ply. Because, yeah, I want to chain ply because basically what's going to happen is I'm spinning, I added fiber 12 to the end of it. Fiber 12 was where I left off. But then I should chain ply it off the bobbin, and then I'll make it to fiber 11, and then I'll spin fiber 11 for like these remaining 11 days of the month. So I'll just sort of wobble back and forth between that. And I got most of the sample done last night, so this would probably require me to be more productive in spinning. More productive in spinning than usual. So, we'll see. I may not be able to get through all of them, but I think saying that, I think I was really hoping that I would be a little bit further along on the project, but there's been much chaos. So it may take a bit more concentrated time in order to do that. Oh well. We'll get it worked out. So the goal eventually was to get that last sort of 800 meters for stash dash, for which spinning tends to be the most efficient way to do that for me. But now I'm doubting this plan, and I should have abandoned my finishing the ply for my solar spin a little bit earlier. Oh man. It's mega foggy, but the sun is trying very hard to peek through the clouds. So, oh well, I tried. If I do not make it, then I can post in the 7K thread and call it a day. But I don't know, is it 700 or 800? Oh, it's not, no, all I need is like 400. That's not so bad. So, it probably would be good to finish this, because I would like to free up the bobbin. And part of this is just sort of my own thing about using up the samples, because I suppose I did end up using a lot of my samples recently, but using up my spinning samples for that cowl, so maybe this was meant to be a project altogether. I don't think it's all color harmonious though, but it's okay. Sort of similar to this project here, which is also hip string fiber. So do I have a total of 6 ounces instead of I probably do actually have 6 ounces instead of 3, so it maybe was ambitious. But it isn't my goal to combine it all into a project, so it might just work out that way. So I'm just trying to keep it loose and easy and that sort of thing, and we'll move on to the next color. Some of these I have spun before because they were included as a part of this, so I'm definitely excited to get back to some of that. What would it be? You'll notice that up there looks a little bit different. I did end up pulling down my Romney fleece, but you might be starting to think in that direction, but really I think I need to hit my woolen spun sweater quantity is pretty hard. So I ended up picking up 4 books. I found them on 8 Books, which is a place where I got, where I have gotten textbooks in the past, way back, so I still had my account. And it was the case where what I ended up doing was I looked, the goal was to pick up Knitting Fresh Brioche because a friend in my knitting book, or my knitting group, ended up bringing it. And when I searched for that, 8 Books very helpfully suggested these books too, and I decided, why not? So 2 of these are Nancy Marchant books. She is the queen of brioche. In her introduction, I had to laugh a little bit about what's going on. And like, if you go on Ravelry and you look at the patterns, that doesn't necessarily give you a good idea about what's going on, because these 2 books are first and foremost stitch dictionaries. So this one has a whole bunch of 2-color brioche patterns, and this one has a whole bunch of tuck stitch patterns. Because I was looking at the patterns and like, nah, like whatever. But I didn't realize they had stitch dictionaries. So there's like 50 some tuck stitch things, and let's see, and there are 75 different 2-color brioche patterns in here. So much fun. And what would it be? Like, we'll just read the book. Join the exciting world of tuck stitch knitting and create textures that personify sophistication. Discover beautiful reversible fabrics with more than 90 original stitch patterns, 8 exquisite scarf cowl and blanket patterns. Nancy Marchant, aka the mother of brioche, will walk you through this exciting new stitch design technique, and you will come away with inspiration to fashion your own tuck stitches. So, like, that's cool. It's cool. So, I've gotten to flip through these. I selected the 2-color brioche from Knitting Fresh Brioche that I would like to do, but I can definitely see some more tuck stitches fun in my future. Let's see. And going along that theme, I also picked up Brioche Knitting for Beginners and Beyond by Leslie Ann Robinson, who is the designer of the Sizzle Top, which has been my pandemic comfort knitting. And then part of the Sizzle Top pattern is actually in the cover one. So. And this, I think, gives a little bit of emphasis here. So this is less so a stitch dictionary so much as it is like a, it's like training wheels for becoming a brioche master. So the way the book is laid out is from easiest to most challenging. And like, I'm a brioche knitter, like I could skip immediately to the back of the book for the challenging patterns, but would it be? What's really nice, so Nancy's books are, she has the blanket shawls and cowls. What's nice about Leslie's patterns is she has sweaters, hats, in addition to the shawls. So she's much more creative about putting the like integrating brioche into more than just whatever lacy swaths of fabric. So what would it be? So it may be the case where, or would it be? So I do like her aesthetic. I do enjoy her patterns. So, but this one is much more of a pattern book than it is a stitch dictionary, but it's also training too. So if you have been thinking, oh, and then she also has like this interesting section about like 3-color brioche, which is not in Nancy's book. So just something to think about. But I follow her on Instagram, so I knew that she had come up with a book. So when it came up as a very reasonable price, I'm like, sure, why not? And the final one is still brioche related, but it's more than just brioche. So this is the Colorwork Bible by Jessie Osterhoy. It's not super duper ridiculously thick, but it covers a pretty wide gamut of color knitting, starting with stripes and moving through everything in between. So we can just read it off quick because I think it is instructive. So we have color theory, yarn choice, and then we go into stripes, stranded, slip stitch and mosaic, intarsia, double knitting, brioche, and then there are some patterns in the book as well. But what would it be? Like this is, and what's actually very interesting about each one of the sort of stitch sections is that they have like a swatch section, and the swatch is there to train you on whatever technique you're interested in doing. So, but it would be the case where this was suggested because it does have brioche in here. And I think a few of the patterns in the back actually have brioche in them too. But I didn't buy this for the pattern so much as for the reference because I do really enjoy multiple color knitting. So it should be fun. Some of this I probably already know, but good to have a reference book. It'd be the case where the principles of knitting, this stuff tends to not be covered quite as deeply. Probably similar to, say, for example, I have all of Nancy Walker's stitch dictionaries, but Nancy Walker did not have brioche and tuck stitch dictionaries, so shenanigans. And I also suspect that what would it be? I also suspect train of thought totally direct. But it'd be the case where I'm excited about all the stuff I've gotten. And I'll probably end up coming back with a few new things tomorrow because I am bringing the sample that I knit to the Black Squirrel, and I get store credit for that. So hopefully I'll be able to pick up a copy of Yarnitecture. Unfortunately, I did not pick up a copy of Yarnitecture in time for Julian to sign it, but we do what we can. So it shouldn't be too crazy. But that should be a fun day tomorrow, but decided that I should probably record today because I'll have to be cooking for the week. Or making sure that I am reasonably prepared for the rest of the week tomorrow. So not a good time to record them. And then in maybe slightly disappointing news, my trip has been canceled. So alas, I need to turn those plane tickets into credit and hope that we will eventually finally get to go. Because I would really like to go. And maybe there just reaches a point where we need to go anyways. What is so nice about this trip is that the only thing I've needed to plan is to occasionally buy and cancel plane tickets. So there's that. But yeah, no, there's a crying child, so I should probably fix that. But would it be? Hopefully there will be exciting new things to share as I start a new brioche pattern on my shawl, and maybe I will finally figure out how many beads I need so I can finish the other thing. I don't know. This is making me curious. Have I even made it to the halfway mark yet? So, I started with 84 grams. I'm at 58. This shawl's gonna take forever. I wanted a challenge. A challenge of. So, with that, I hope you guys have a lovely week, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. So, take care, guys. Bye-bye.